Okay, let's continue the study of the Encyclical Libertas Praestantissimum, written by who?
Leo XIII.
In 1888. We left off on paragraph 36. Liberalism summed up its essential vice, throwing off authority of God. Liberalism is its various forms of liberalism. God is rejected. That's absolute liberalism. Moderate liberalism throws off his church and the supernatural law, believes in separation of church and state. And some separators are for the state disregarding the church altogether. Others are for the state depriving the church of her rights as a perfect society. So oppress the church. Other liberals are for the state recognizing the church and her rights so long as she gets with it. So long as the church doesn't condemn the errors that need to be condemned and is silent. As long as the bishops are silent. So the communists, they didn't mind the Catholic bishops who never condemned communism. They left them alone. But name one cardinal that was in prison because he would not be silent when they told him to be and threatened him, and stop condemning communism.
Cardinal Mezenti?
Mezenti, yeah. In what country?
In Poland.
No, but it borders it. Where Aggie's from.
Oh, Hungary.
Hungary, yes. All right, 36. And now to reduce for clearness' sake to its principal heads all that has been set forth with its immediate conclusions, the summing up in this briefly, that man, by a necessity of his nature, is wholly subject to the most faithful and ever-enduring power of God, and that as a consequence any liberty except that which consists in submission to God and in subjection to his will is unintelligible. To deny the existence of this authority in God or to refuse to submit to it means to act not as a free man, but as one who treasonably abuses his liberty. And in such a disposition of mind, the chief and deadly vice of liberalism essentially consists. So notice he calls it the disposition of the mind. It's a sickness of the mind, it is. The form, however, of the sin is manifold, for in more ways and degrees than one can the will depart from the obedience which is due to God or to those who share the divine power. So the essence of liberalism is rebellion against God, and there's different shades of it, he's saying. 37, Anthony?
4. To reject the supreme authority to God, and to cast off all obedience to him in public matters, or even in private and domestic affairs, is the greatest perversion of liberty and the worst kind of liberalism. And what we have said must be understood to apply to this alone in its fullest sense.
Yeah, why is it so perverse to throw off the authority of God? Why is the Pope insisting that there's nothing more perverse?
Because it goes against reason.
Against reason, yes. It goes against nature, yes. So it's kind of like a car saying, I don't want your gasoline. Yeah, but you're not going to be able to run without your gas, or my gas. I don't want your gas. Leave me alone. I reject it. Well, then you're going nowhere. So see how unreasonable it is. That's how stupid sin really is. It's not reasonable. So for man to throw off God individually and as a state, as a civil authority, these are huge crimes. And the way God punishes them is he lets them go the path they choose. So they self-disintegrate. And usually countries who reject God, they get overcome by other countries. They get smashed by other countries. So like many of the countries that the apostles converted, Northern Africa and Persia and Iraq and all of those other areas, Iran, many of those territories fell into heresy. And they were stubbornly adhering to heresy and rejected the condemnations of the Catholic Church. So they were punished later by what?
The Muslim invasion.
Muslim invasions. And they were vicious, yeah. They were vicious, the Muslims. So God will allow countries to be punished sometimes, here on earth. And at the day of judgment, countries will also be judged. The United States will be judged, and you and I will be judged also on what good we did for our country or what bad we did. Did we just sit by and let it all go by, or did we do something about it? Or at least say something about it for priests and make reparation and so forth. 38. Go ahead, Tony.
Next comes the system of those who admit indeed the duty of submitting to God, the creator and ruler of the world, inasmuch as all nature is dependent on his will, but who boldly reject all laws of faith and morals which are above natural reason, but are revealed by the authority of God, or who at least impudently assert that there is no reason why regard should be paid to these laws, at any rate publicly, by the state. How mistaken these men also are, and how inconsistent we have seen above.
Okay, so they're not saying reject all God. They're just saying individuals can have their private devotions and their private beliefs, but let the state be separate from the church. Let the state be neutral on
matters of religion.
Yes. So this is moderate liberalism. This is the liberalism of Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and we don't reject God. We don't deny him. You can pray to the God of your choice, but let's just state and church must be separate. So it's evil. It's really bad. Go on.
From this teaching, as from its source and principle, flows that fatal principle of the separation of church and state.
Repeat that sentence.
From this teaching, as from its source and principle, flows that fatal principle of the separation of church and state. Whereas it is, on the contrary, clear that the two powers, though dissimilar in functions and unequal in degree, ought nevertheless to live in concord, by harmony in their action and the faithful discharge of their respective duties.
Yes. So you see, truth is not always simplistic. Truth is a balance of many things. So for the church and state to cooperate in union, there's a balance of many things. And it's not all state or all church. They have to work together, like mom and dad, for the good of the family. So it's easy to fall into extremes and error. And that's why we need the guidance of the Catholic Church, of tradition. 40. Others oppose not the existence of the church.
Father, I'm sorry. 39. I think it's 39.
39,
Yeah.
sorry. But this teaching is understood in two ways. Many wish the state to be separated from the church wholly and entirely, so that with regard to every right of human society in institutions, customs, and laws, the offices of state, and the education of youth, they would pay no more regard to the church than if she did not exist, and at most would allow the citizens individually to attend to their religion in private, if so minded. Against such as these, all the arguments by which we disprove the principle of separation of church and state are conclusive, with this superadded that it is absurd the citizen should respect the church while the state may hold her in contempt. So he's showing all the absurd arguments of liberalism. 40. Go on, Tony, Anthony.
Others oppose not the existence of the church, nor indeed could they. Yet they despoiled her of the nature and rights of a perfect society, and maintain that it does not belong to her to legislate, to judge, or to punish, but only to exhort, to advise, and to rule her subjects in accordance with their own consent and will. By such opinion they pervert the nature of this divine society, and attenuate and narrow its authority, its office of teacher, and its whole efficiency, and at the same time they aggrandize the power of the civil government to such extent as to subject the Church of God to the empire and sway of the state, like any voluntary association of citizens.
Okay. What is that called when the state takes over the church and kind of runs it? What's it called? It's Caesar and the papal states. So it's called Caesaropapism. When Caesar, the state, tries to overrun the church. That's Caesaropapism. So it's an abuse, a terrible abuse. And that's what he's talking about. Go on.
To refute completely such teaching, the arguments often used by the defenders of Christianity and set forth by us, especially in the Encyclical letter Immortale Dei, are of great avail. For by those arguments it is proved that, by a divine provision, all the rights which essentially belong to a society that is legitimate, supreme, and perfect in all its parts exist in the church.
Yes. So that would be in the chart of Bishop Williamson. That would be number 33. Others are for the state depriving the church of her rights as a perfect society. So tax the church. Take away the tax exemption. So the enemies of Christ are really working for that in the United States. And then 34, paragraph 34 of the chart. What's it say, Tony?
Others are for state recognizing church and her rights.
33.
33. Others are for state depriving church of her rights as a perfect society.
34.
Others are for state recognizing church and her rights as long as she, quote unquote, gets with it.
Yeah, so that's the next paragraph. 41, Tony?
Lastly, there remain those who, while they do not approve the separation of church and state, think nevertheless that the church ought to adapt herself to the times and conform to what is required by the modern system of government. Such an opinion is sound, if it is to be understood of some equitable adjustment, consistent with truth and justice. Insofar, namely, that the church, in the hope of some great good, may show herself indulgent, and may conform to the times insofar as her sacred office permits. But it is not so in regard to practices and doctrines, which a perversion of morals and a warped judgment have unlawfully introduced. Religion, truth, and justice must ever be maintained, and as God has entrusted these great and sacred matters to her office, as to dissemble in regard to what is false or unjust, or to connive at what is hurtful to religion.
So yes, where would Vatican II, where does Vatican II set in all these positions? What position is Vatican II? Absolute liberalism, moderate liberalism?
I would say it's the one which Vatican II is part of, recognizing the church, her rights, as long as the church gets with the modern times.
Yes, but these people still don't approve separation of church and state. So Vatican II is actually worse because it approved separation of church and state.
And not only approved it, but actively encouraged it and did its best to get the church separated from the state. An example is, what's the name of that bishop in Colombia, Father? That he worked to get...
the great anti-liberal one, Bishop
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes, that he actually worked to get in the Constitution of Colombia. He worked to get any reference of the Catholic Church out of the Constitution.
That was in Colombia. That was
Yes, I think it was
Castillo and Hoyos.
Yes.
Yes, he was the one that seduced Bishop Fillet.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the one. Yeah, Castillo and Hoyos. Poor soul. All right, paragraph 42, page 19. If you're able to take it, go ahead.
42, Father?
Paragraph 42, page 19.
From what has been said, it follows that it is quite unlawful to demand, to defend, or to grant unconditional freedom of thought, of speech, or writing, or of worship, as if these things were so many rights given by nature to man. For, if nature had really granted them, it would be lawful to refuse obedience to God, and there would be no restraint on human liberty. It likewise follows that freedom in these things may be tolerated wherever there is just cause, and only with such moderation as will prevent its degenerating into license and excess. And where such liberties are in use, men should employ them in doing good, and should estimate them as the Church does. For liberty is to be regarded as legitimate, in so far only as it affords greater facility for doing good, but no farther.
43, Tony.
Whenever there exists, or there is reason to fear, an unjust oppression of the people on the one hand, or a deprivation of the liberty of the Church on the other, it is lawful to seek for such a change of government as will bring about due liberty of action. In such case, an excessive and vicious liberty is not sought, but only some relief for the common welfare, in order that, while license for evil is allowed by the state, the power of doing good may not be hindered.
44, go on.
Again, it is not of itself wrong to prefer a democratic form of government, if only the Catholic doctrine be maintained as to the origin and exercise of power.
Repeat.
Again, it is not of itself wrong to prefer a democratic form of government, if only the Catholic doctrine be maintained as to the origin and exercise of power.
And what does the Church teach about origin and exercise of power?
It all comes from God.
Yes. So it's not from the people, it's from God. It's a huge difference. Go on.
Of the various forms of government, the Church does not reject any that are fitted to procure the welfare of the subject. She wishes only, and this nature itself requires, that they should be constituted without involving wrong to anyone, and especially without violating the rights of the Church.
Yes. So does the Church condemn aristocracy?
No.
Does she condemn monarchy?
No.
Does she condemn democracy?
No.
As long as what principles are in place?
The origin and authority of God.
Yes.
Or the origin of power and the authority of God.
And that the Catholic Church be respected as the perfect society that she is, established by Christ. And you know it's a true religion because of the
Miracles.
The 4 marks.
the four marks.
Yeah.
4 marks, plus the miracles and prophecies, yes. 45, unless it be otherwise determined by reason of some exceptional condition of things, it is expedient to take part in the administration of public affairs. And the Church approves of everyone devoting his services to the common good, in doing all that he can for the defense, preservation, and prosperity of his country. So, look at Bishop Williamson's chart. Conclusion, rights of man, falsely understood. 35, Tony.
Thus, man has no rights to unconditional lack of constraint in any domain.
Truly understood, rights of man, truly understood. Revolution, 36, Tony.
He has a quote-unquote right to revolt, only from people's or church's liberty for evil, to do good.
37, democracy.
He has a quote-unquote right to self-government, only if he recognizes authority is from God.
38,
In which case, all participation of people in public affairs is approved by the Church.
okay, and now we're winding down. 46, Anthony.
Neither does the Church condemn those who, if it can be done without violation of justice, wish to make their country independent of any foreign or despotic power. Nor does she blame those who wish to assign to the state the power of self-government, and to its citizens the greatest possible measure of prosperity. The Church has always most faithfully fostered civil liberty, and this was seen especially in Italy, in the municipal prosperity and wealth and glory which were obtained at a time when the salutary power of the Church has spread, without opposition to all parts of the state.
Yes, so 39, independence. He has a right to independence and right to prosperity only in subordination to justice. 47, if you can take it.
These things, venerable brothers, which under the guidance of faith and reason, and in the discharge of our apostolic office, we have now delivered to you, we hope, especially by your cooperation with us, will be useful unto very many. In lowliness of heart we raise our eyes in supplication to God, and earnestly beseech Him to shed mercifully the light of His wisdom and of His counsel upon men, so that, strengthened by these heavenly gifts, they may in matters of such moment discern what is true, and may afterwards, in public and private, at all times, and with unshaken constancy, live in accordance with the truth. As a pledge of these heavenly gifts, and in witness of our goodwill to you, venerable brothers, and to the clergy and people committed to each of you, we most lovingly grant in the Lord the apostolic benediction, given at St. Peter's in Rome, the 20th day of June, 1888, the 10th year of our pontificate.
Okay. So, dear bishops, we pray that men may see the truth and obey it. We bless you, June 20th, 1888. Libertas. So let's go through again some of the points on this chart here. So we see there's true liberty, false liberty, the conclusion. So that's the basic breakdown of the encyclical. Introduction, grandeur of liberty. 1, Tony.
Liberty, man's highest natural gift, is assisted by the Redeemer, cherished by church.
Yeah, so it's a gift of God. It's a gift of God, liberty. And there's a true liberty. But number 2, vitiated modern notions of liberty require a separate encyclical. So the Pope is going to directly treat this question. And this is really a gem.
This is my favorite one so far.
Yeah?
I think because mostly it is, I mean, he's condemning everything that's going on today. Like, this is like,
Yeah. The Archbishop Lefebvre often quoted this. He often referred to this encyclical. He refers to there's about 15 or 16 popes who condemn modern errors, stretching from the French Revolution to Pius XII. And he really gets into this one. And in the book, they have uncrowned him. Is there a copy of it in there?
I don't think so.
He goes into it. Anyway, so the true liberty. So what's the true teaching on liberty? Here it is. There's physical liberty and there's moral liberty. In moral liberty, there's the doctrine. Liberty requires law. All law is God's law. Therefore, liberty requires God's law. That's a wonderful syllogism right here. Liberty requires law. All law is
God's law.
Therefore, liberty requires
God's law.
That's a syllogism. And then the church teaches, she's the defender of liberty, she protects the people. And then the false liberty, doctrine of liberalism, which twists the true teaching on liberty and makes, what is the main, well, let's go quickly through what is true liberty. First, the doctrine on physical liberty. 3, Tony, natural or physical liberty.
Natural or physical liberty, base of all liberties, is based on man's rational nature.
Yes. So it's not like animals who are not free. They have to follow instinct. But rational nature, angels and men, we are free to make decisions. But what is the true definition of liberty?
Liberty is the means of choosing.
Is the faculty.
The faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping order to the end.
Everybody, liberty is,
the faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping order to the end.
again,
Liberty is the faculty of choosing the means to the end while keeping order to the end.
yeah, always the end in mind. We're not allowed to break out of what we're made for, the vision of the Trinity. The church teaching 4, Tony?
The immortal soul's natural liberty, the church has defended against all comers.
Yes, so the church defends man's liberty. Because there were errors in the time of St. Augustine that said, according to the constellation of the stars, your fate is set. You have no choice. You're going to be a murderer. Or those who say, your horoscope says this, and this, you're set. But the church says, no, you're not. You have freedom to go against the constellation of the stars, regardless of what they say, right? So, and the liberty, the free will is part of the soul, intellect and will, which are above the passions even, and temperaments too. So, the free will is above these things. One is not confined to their passions or to their temperaments. They can control them. They're free to do it. They have an influence, true, but they're not enslaved to them like animals. All right, the church's teaching on physical liberty 4, Tony.
4 or 5, Father.
All right, you just did 4.
Yeah.
So moral liberty, the doctrine, liberty requires the law. 5.
Liberty is a faculty of beings that can choose by intelligence and will.
So liberty is a faculty that belongs to human beings or angels that can choose by
Intelligence and will.
6.
But erring human intelligence and wayward will can wreck their choice.
And what's the proof of that? What's the proof of human intelligence erring and will wrecking their life and choice?
Just the reality of sin.
Yeah, people make stupid decisions all the time. People choose to go the dark path all the time. So that shows men are inclined towards evil and easily fall into it. Liberty requires law. Number 7. Therefore, that's the 3 dots. Therefore,
human intelligence and will require direction, that is, law.
okay, so here's the other. This is 5, 6, 7 is another syllogism. 5, liberty is a faculty of beings that can choose by intelligence and will. Major. Minor, but erring human intelligence and wayward will can wreck their choice. Conclusion, therefore, what?
Human intelligence and will require direction, that is, law.
Why do they require direction?
Because of the fact that the human intelligence can err and the will can't, and the will is inclined to the evil.
Yeah, it can be perverse. It can be perverse. Those in schools teaching children, doubting if they're boys or girls, these are deeply perverse acts against the natural law and reason, and they'll be taken account of. They will face God. So human intelligence and will require direction because human intelligence and will can mess up because of
Original sin.
yes. So you see how the Catholic faith all makes sense. And why do we have original sin? The fall of Adam and Eve, and there was promised the Redeemer. So it all hinges together. You take one doctrine out of the Catholic faith, the whole thing falls apart, like a bike chain or a chainsaw chain. Church, God's law. The liberty requires God's law. 10, Tony?
Therefore, true human liberty lies in conforming with God's eternal law.
Wait a minute. All right, let's go back to 8. Go on. In the individual.
In the individual, there is natural law, implant of God's eternal law helped by God's grace.
Okay, so there's the natural law. And 9.
In society, there is human law, enacting or supporting God's natural law.
Right, so human law, whether it be ecclesiastical of the church or civil, laws are supposed to help the common good. So it used to be against the law for 2 unmarried people to cohabit in the same house. It would be against the law. They're not married. It's a scandal. It breaks down society. And it's an injustice to the children. It used to be against the law to have a business open on Sundays. How's that? Except restaurants, because people travel and need to eat. But even then, there were some restraints. And then, of course, it used to be always, it still is against the law to kill your baby, to kill the old people. So there's natural law that's built into us. It's the reflection of God's law in us. And what is that law of God called? What is the law fixed in God?
The eternal law.
Yes. So what is the natural law but?
The eternal law written in man's heart.
Yes. It's man's participation in the eternal law. But having free will, he can go against it. And then in society, civil or church, there is the
Human law.
enacting or supporting God's natural law. That's what it's supposed to do. Right? I know I'm repeating and hashing this out, but it's important we get this, get a good grasp of this. And just to have clarity of thoughts, right? This is a treasure. This is worth more than gold, what we're studying here. 10, therefore, Tony?
Therefore, true human liberty lies in conforming with God's eternal law.
Yes. So there's another syllogism. 8, 9, 10. Major, in the individual there is
Natural law.
implant of God's,
Eternal law.
helped by God's grace. Minor, in society there is
Human law.
enacting or,
Supporting God's natural law.
therefore conclusion, true human liberty lies in,
Conforming with God's eternal law.
yes, because it's built into us. And 11,
For God's authority perfects and guides human liberty to the good which is its perfection.
repeat.
For God's authority perfects and guides human liberty to the good which is its perfection.
So does God want man's true liberty?
Yes.
Yes, he does. And he perfects it. He guides it to the good, which is its perfection. So God has given everything to help man attain eternal happiness, the beatific vision. And he's given all the laws for men to follow in the state and the church, but men mess it up. 12, the church, the defender of liberty. 12.
Of this true liberty, the Catholic Church has always been the incomparable defender.
That's right. That's right. Those who say you're fixed by fate, those are wrong. Protectors of the people. 13.
Tying authority to God, she ennobles true obedience, effectually bars tyranny.
That's right. If a tyrant steps out of line and he goes against God's law, the Pope could excommunicate him, like Queen Elizabeth under Pius, the great St. Pius V, and they don't have to obey her anymore, because they go against God's law and they're harming the common good. So, pivot from true to false liberty. 14.
Thus far, the wisdom of the Church, now the foolishness of liberals.
Okay, so the first part, he's dealing with what is liberty, what's the distinctions, and the church defends this. Now we're going to look at the wrecking of the understanding of true liberty by false liberty. Doctrine of liberalism, in general and in detail. In general, radical individual liberalism. 15.
Human reason is sovereign, man answers, and is subject to nobody.
So it's the echo of Lucifer's what?
Non serviam. I will not serve.
That's right. Human reason is sovereign. So you really get this mentality when this idea that man's reason doesn't need to submit to revelation anymore. What age are
The
we
French
looking at?
Revolution?
Yeah, the age of so-called enlightenment. But it's really the age of endarkment. But that's the modern philosophies, the philosophs, that were all condemned by Pius X. And we might do that the next encyclical, our apostolic mandate, where Pius X just condemns all of them, all these rotten Enlightenment philosophers that say human reason is above revelation, doesn't have to submit even to reality. doesn't have to submit to the reality God has made. And who's the champion, deadly philosopher who championed these errors? Two of them.
Kant and Descartes.
René Descartes and Immanuel Kant, yes. René Descartes was French and a Catholic, and Immanuel Kant. So, in metaphysics especially, you will get into criteriology, which exposes the errors of these philosophers. It really is a rebellion against truth. I make my own truth. They will not submit to reality. It's a deep pride. And it's unreasonable too. But so hence they often say in the high schools, to pervert the children's minds at a young age, if there's a tree that falls in the woods and there's no ear to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. Well, what does St. Thomas and Aristotle say?
It does.
Of course it makes a sound. The animals and insects hear it. And if nobody else, the angels hear it. But modern philosophy says
it doesn't make a sound.
you can't be sure. There's no ear to hear it. How do you know it exists? How do you know the tree is there? How do you know the woods are there? How do you know my ear even hears correctly? How do you know my eyes even see truth and reality? Maybe I make my own truth. So they throw doubt and skepticism on the most basic tools to know truth.
It's a complete breakdown of rational thinking.
Yes, it is. And the logical conclusion is what?
There's no truth. Oh, right.
It is. It's the logical conclusion of modern philosophy. That's why Bishop Williamson used to say, talking about Sartre. Sartre was one of these rotten philosophers, and he used to make plays. People would pay money to go see his plays, and there were often suicides after his plays. Because he brought people to see that, how do you know there's any truth? Maybe it's not, what you think is true is not true. We'll come to that in metaphysics. And they say, well, one of their arguments, like the other one I just proposed, if you stick a stick in water, what does it look like? Like it bends. So your eyes are deceiving you, you see? But the stick is not really bending. So you can't trust your senses. That's how perverse they are. But Aristotle fiercely defends the senses. That your eyes are made to see, your ears to hear, your mind for truth, your will for good. He defends this vehemently. And he says, for example, someone whose taste is off, that the exception proves the rule. One who doesn't taste sweetness when he tastes sugar, but everybody else does, it proves the rule that man's taste his tongue is for tasting. But these modern philosophers, they attack the tools to know truth, and therefore attack truth.
I remember you talking about the whole stick analogy on the retreat, and that it's the water that's making the stick appear like it's bending. It's not your eye. So your eye still is giving you the truth that the water is distorting.
That's right.
So you can still trust it.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Father, was it Descartes that performed the cat in the box experiment?
The what?
Cat in the box, where he put a cat in a cardboard box. He left it in a closet. As was a Descartes or Kant. He left it in a closet for a week. He didn't feed it. He came back and he found it dead. And he came to the conclusion that the cat was dead only when he found out it was dead.
I've never heard that.
No,
I've heard that.
Schrodinger's.
Oh, Schrodinger's? Oh,
Schrodinger's cat or something.
Who's the philosopher?
Schrodinger.
Schrodinger.
I thought it was Descartes.
Poor cat. Yeah, but that's Pius X. He doesn't play games with these philosophers. He just condemns every one of them because they're so perverse. It's a perversion of the mind.
It's a type of thing. It's honestly rooted in pride, because you're only willing to believe the things that conform with what you want to believe or what you see.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very deadly, and that's why it's refreshing to have Thomism and these great encyclicals. It's a true gift of God. Adiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.